Hill's Point, Part 15, Deja Vu. Officer Dannon opened the door of the diner, his gun drawn and ready to fire. He had seen the fresh bullet casings that littered the cracked parking lot, smelled the gunpowder in the air. It looked like a war zone. Somehow Thomas knew that Karowitz had been through here. He could feel it. He was maybe a day ahead of him, but it didn't matter. Thomas knew exactly where Bobby was going, and with that fact in mind, it gave him peace of mind. Not to mention time to look for clues and try to figure a few things out, like whether or not Bobby was injured, and just how far he'd gotten. The smell of blood hung in the air like a mist, almost choking him. "Oh yeah, someone's dead in here for sure," Thomas said aloud. Empty plates and chairs littered the diner. In the gloom, Thomas spotted a dry, crusty substance covering the floor in front of him. As he looked closer, he could see that it was blood. A trail of it led back behind the cash register. With his gun out, he proceeded to the back room, following the trail of blood and stench, finally reaching the door of a large walk-in cooler. As he put out his hand, there was a loud, deafening crack above his head, momentarily stunning him. When he finally turned around, the young cop, Michael Sims, had his gun directly pointed at Officer Dannon's head. Tucking and rolling behind a desk, he pushed it on its side and returned fire. "What the fuck are you doing, Sims?" Dannon screamed through clenched teeth. Somewhere in front of him there was a low, hysterical laugh that grated on Dannon's teeth. "Michael Sims reporting for duty, sir," he said in a mocking tone, in between another two blasts from his pistol. "Sims, stop firing and talk to me." "No can do, officer. Can't let you out of here alive. The boss wouldn't like that at all," Sims said, blindly returning fire. "Who are you working for, Sims?" Another laugh came from Sims' direction, along with the quick step of heavy feet. "I've said too much. Can't let you live now." And very suddenly, Sims was on him, gun pointed in his face. On instinct, Officer Dannon knocked Sims' hands a fraction off its intended course and proceeded to strike him in the face, knocking him to the floor. Sims' gun flew from his hand and skidded across the back room. Suddenly, he was the one with the gun pointed at him. He tried to scramble after it, but Dannon kicked him in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him with a loud whooshing sound. Sims laughed in between shuddering gasps. "What now, lawman?" he said in that same insulting tone. "You gonna shoot me in cold blood?" Dannon glared down at Sims with a newfound hatred, but more than that was a simple curiosity. What would make this boy, who was barely almost a man, try and kill a senior police officer? It only brought more questions. Taking out his handcuffs, Dannon took Sims by the collar and dragged him roughly over to the largest cabinet in the kitchen. There was a pipe protruding out directly beside it that ran vertically up and down the entire length of the wall, finally disappearing through a hole in the ceiling. His gun still trained on Sims, Officer Dannon pulled his handcuffs from his pocket, and with one knee pressed firmly against Sims' chest, took hold of one hand and proceeded to cuff it to the pipe. "Now don't move around too much, or you and I are going to have a problem," Dannon said, securing Sims' hand against the pipe. Struggling to free himself from Dannon's grasp, Sims' face was contorted into a look of sheer hatred, his eyes glinting through his hair in the dim light. "Fuck you, pig," he screamed, spitting in Dannon's face. Dannon's reaction was instantaneous. Drawing back the pistol in his right hand, he struck Sims directly in the center of his forehead. Sims grimaced as he cried out in pain. Wiping the spit out of his eyes, Dannon drew back from Sims, looking down on him at his full height. "Now I'm going to ask you again, and you better give me the answer I want. I don't have all day, and you're starting to piss me off." Sims looked up at Dannon and smiled. "Why don't you ask the lady in the fridge what's going on?" he replied through clenched teeth. A visible bruise had begun to show on Sims' forehead. It was quickly turning blue and purple. Dannon turned his head to look at the door of the walk-in freezer behind him. In all the excitement, he had almost forgotten the trail of blood he had seen when he had first arrived at the diner, but he saw that it led directly to the freezer. He also noticed that the smell of rotting flesh seemed much stronger in the back kitchen than it had in the actual dining area. Moving to the side of the room, he picked up Sim's pistol and moved cautiously towards the door, opening it slowly at first. The smell was almost unbearable. Covering his face with one of his hands, Dannon looked inside the freezer. It was dark, but he could make out a covered shape in the doorway, as well as what looked to be more bodies hanging on hooks further back. "What the fuck?" Dannon said aloud in disbelief. "What the fuck is this place?" As he hauled the form wrapped in the tablecloth out of the way of the door and swung it shut, he could feel Sim's eyes on him. "She was a troublesome old bitch. I've heard that, at least. They've been looking for her for months now. Karowitz must have done the job for us." Dannon pointed his gun at Sims. "You shut your mouth," he snarled. Sim shook his head with a sigh. "Poor law man," he said with mock regret. "Doesn't even know he's a dead man." Dannon snorted. "Oh yeah, who's gonna kill me, Sims? You? Just wait and see, pig. You wait and see," Sims muttered under his breath. "Yeah, that's what I thought, you cocky little shit," Dannon said smugly. Rolling out the body in the tablecloth, Dannon could see that Sims had been right. It looked to be a woman about 90 years old. She was missing an eye, but that didn't seem to be a new injury. Looking the body over, he saw that she had been shot clean through. "Son of a bitch," Dannon whispered quietly. Turning back to Sims and looking him dead in the eye, he spoke. "You just sit tight, you hear? I'll call this in and we'll be back to town in no time, and you, my friend, will have a nice cell-shaped home to live in for the next little while." Dannon's words only brought another mocking retort and malicious laughter. "You really think that they don't know you're already here, pig? They own the police, and you're getting too nosy, going after Karowitz like this. Hines thought he could just send you out here and hope for the best. Yeah, right. Sorry, cop, but you're done, and there's nothing you can do about it." Sims fell silent and closed his eyes. Dannon had to think. Who owned the police? It didn't take him long to piece it together, but it was crazy. Could it be the Children of Light? But they were just a story, weren't they? But if they weren't, what did they want with Karowitz? Dannon rose to his feet and holstered Sim's gun in his belt. "All right, Sims," Dannon said quietly. "You're coming with me. At the end of this, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in a cell, but right now I need your help." Sims looked up at Dannon and spat again, this time on the floor beside him. "Makes you think I'm going to help you do anything?" Without saying a word, Dannon grabbed Sim's free wrist and slammed it against the wall. Then, spinning his gun in his hand, he used the butt of his pistol to hammer down 5 more times before Sims screamed at him to stop. All right, god damn it, stop, you broke my hand." Dannon turned and whispered in Sim's ear, "You're gonna help me find Karowitz, Sims, or I'm gonna spend the next 6 hours laying a beating on you that you won't ever forget. Understand me?" Sims nodded as Dannon let go of his now broken hand. "All right, Sims, I'm gonna unlock you, and you're not gonna try and run away, right?" Sims nodded again, whimpering and cradling his hand. As he unlocked the handcuffs and backed away, facing Sims, still pointing his gun directly at him, Sims rose slowly from the ground. "Hands on your head. Do it now," Dannon barked. Wordlessly, Sims did as he was told. Walking out into the dinner area, Dannon made a note of this place. When he was done with Karowitz, he would come back and sort it out. Make sure all the people in this place received a proper burial. As if sensing that Dannon was distracted, Sims bolted for the door, screaming as he ran. "Fuck you, pig!" Calmly, Dannon took up a dining chair in one hand, and being careful to aim directly for the back of Sims' legs, threw it as hard as he could, toppling Sims over like a stack of cards. "You're pissing me off, Sims. Dannon said, grabbing him roughly by his blonde surfer haircut and dragging him out of the diner. "Fucking let me go!" Sims screamed as they walked through the parking lot full of empty cars towards Dannon's police cruiser. When they got there, Dannon tucked his gun into his holster and slammed Sims' head on the trunk lid. Grunting, he read Sims's rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do may be used against you in a court of—" "I don't care. Just let go of me, you fuck." "All right then," Dannon said smugly, "if you insist." Pulling his car keys out of his pocket, he unlocked the trunk of his car and threw Sims in, slamming the lid. "Enjoy the ride, Sims," Dannon yelled, walking over to the driver's side door and getting in. As he started the cruiser, he rubbed his eyes and yawned. "I need more sleep," he said absent-mindedly. Driving away, he could hear the muffled sound of Sims screaming. Dannon sighed. "Gonna be an interesting couple of days."